Yo, there's Britt here, and today we're gonna try something new. I'm gonna pull a couple of scenes out of Man of Steel, and I'm just gonna share my thoughts on, acting, cinematography, blocking, and whatever else comes to me, and we'll see what happens. It could be fun. If you want to get good at this whole filmmaking thing, then it helps to study movies. If you haven't seen it first, you should definitely check it out because, well, spoilers are a thing. And without further ado, let's get into it. Scene 1, launch the baby. So in this scene, Superman's pops, his biological pops anyway, Jor-El is trying to convince his wife to launch baby Superman into space because their planet is about to blow up. Let's see how they utilize the actor's blocking to help tell the story.
His cells will drink its radiation.
Jor-El explains how baby Clark's gonna have a much better chance of survival on Earth with the humans, but Mama's not too crazy about the idea.
What if the ship doesn't make it?
Mama turns away and distances herself from Jor-El, clutching baby Superman. Visually, this mimics her opinion of Jor-El's idea. She doesn't like it and she's whisking baby Superman away, almost like she's protecting him. When we find ourselves in situations that we don't particularly like, we tend to walk away from them or we distance ourselves from them, right? It's pretty much a universal language. So now Jor-El's got to convince his wife that sending their newborn baby into outer space is the right thing to do. As he reasons with her, he turns to her and moves toward her, closing the distance between them. His actions mirror his objective, which is to engage her and to draw her focus. When the bad guys move in on them, the focus shifts to baby Superman. We can see Jor-El touching Mama in an effort to comfort her. We get goodbye kisses and Jor-El takes baby Superman. He's convinced her. If we watch this entire scene without sound, we can still get a context of what the scene is about. Jor-El shares an idea. Mama doesn't like it and moves away with the baby. Jor-El closes in on her to convince her. They say their goodbyes and Jor-El takes the baby. This scene could have easily played out with Jor-El and his wife standing in one spot talking it out, but visually it wouldn't have been as effective. Next, baby launch. So Mama's about to launch her newborn baby Superman into outer space destined for Earth. This is just like a quick little example of how you can use reaction shots to build suspense.
Abort the launch!
What makes this moment work are the reaction shots. Zod pleads with Mama, we get her reaction, she looks to Jor-El, we get his reaction, and then back to Mama as she makes her decision. Every time we get a reaction shot, we are in that character's head for that moment. We already know that Jor-El wants to send his newborn son, baby Superman, into outer space headed for Earth, and we already know that his wife supports him in this decision. These quick shots pull us into the characters and expand time at that critical moment, building suspense right before the climax of that scene. Next, Jor-El's dead. So Zod just killed Jor-El. It's sad. After killing Jor-El, Zod asks Mama where the spaceship carrying baby Superman is headed.
His name is Kal, son of El. And he's beyond your reach.
So this moment could have played out in one of two ways. One, we could have had the actress crying hysterically over Jor-El's dead body and just being a sobby mess for most, if not all, of the scene, or she could have chosen to play to the strength of the character. And here it's obvious that she chose to play to the strength of the character, which is generally almost always the more interesting choice to watch. She has a moment where she's clearly grieving, but then she pulls it all together when she answers Zod's question. Even when she's witnessing planet Krypton blow up right before her eyes, she still holds her composure and exhibits strength and courage. Now, whether it was the director's idea or the actor's idea to make this choice, I'm not sure, but I mean, it works. Next, daddy talk. So Clark, aka baby Superman, has just saved a school bus full of kids and now people are afraid of him because of his abilities. In this scene, Papa Kent comes out to talk to Clark. Let's see how they use blocking to help tell the story. Papa Kent's at the end of the truck for more than half of the scene.
Oh, Clark, you have to keep this side of yourself a secret.
Now Clark is obviously distressed and Papa Kent's trying to console him, drop some knowledge on him, etc, etc. And then by the end of the scene, when Papa Kent has made some progress, he sits down next to Clark.
She was scared of Clark.
If you want to comfort someone, usually you get closer to them, The closer, the better. Again, that's kind of the universal language aspect of it. But if we were to summarize this entire scene based on just the actor's movements and the blocking, then what do we have? We've got father meeting son who's clearly upset about something, says some words of encouragement. Then as the scene progresses, father moves even closer to son, offering the most comfort. Visually, we can see progression in the scene through the characters' actions along with the dialogue. Papa Kent could have easily just walked out of the house and sat right next to Clark at the beginning of the scene, but I don't think it would have been as effective and it would not have had that sense of progression in terms of the visuals. Shots. So most of the scene is covered in 2 medium shots. We've got a medium on Papa Kent and the reverse on Clark. But the most important 2 lines in the scene are the only 2 lines covered in a close-up.
People are afraid of what they don't understand.
Is she right? Did God do this to me?
That last line from Papa Kent is pretty much the heart of his entire message to Clark, which is people fear what they don't understand. Hence the close-up. Next, Clark returns home. In the scene, Clark has just returned home. He's found out about his people and where he comes from. He's excited and he wants to tell Mama Kent all about it, but she kind of has her own reservations with it. Let's see how they use the actors' blocking to help tell the story. Clark meets with Mama Kent. They hug each other and then walk together. Everything's good, they're catching up, but then when Clark tells her that he's finally found out about his people and where he comes from, she turns away. So it's clear that she doesn't like the idea, something is bothering her, and she is distancing herself from Clark. Clark sees that something's wrong and closes the distance between them. They sit down and talk it out. Once they reach somewhat of an understanding, Mama Kent wraps her arm around Clark, and then we got hugs. The actor playing Clark could have stayed in his spot and continued the conversation from where he was standing, but instead he closes the distance with Mama Kent and sits next to her in an attempt to ease her concerns. So if we summarize the scene just through the actors' movements, then what do we have? Mom and son walk together, things are good. The conflict in the scene, Mama's concern for her son forces them apart. Son moves closer to Mom to comfort her. By the end of the scene, they're closer than ever. Now this scene could have played out or been blocked any number of ways. Imagine how differently this scene could have felt if Clark and Mama Kent simply sat on the steps for the whole scene. Shots. Most of the coverage in this scene is fairly conventional, shot, reverse shot, nothing special, but there are 2 areas that I want to point out. 1. When Clark tells Mom that he's found his people and he knows where he comes from, we don't cut to the reverse of Mom's reaction. Instead, we get her reaction in the same shot.
That's wonderful.
I think they covered this particular section in one shot so as not to break the realism of that moment. So we get, Clark's statement and his mother's reaction, all real time, undisturbed. 2. When Clark and Mama Kent talk on the steps, it's covered in shot, reverse shot type fashion. For the first part of that conversation, when Clark and Mama Kent aren't exactly on the same page, we get single close-ups. As they work out their concerns in conversation, both of their shots become 2 shots, visually communicating their togetherness. It's a subtle difference, but small things like this can really help to visually communicate the emotional progression in a scene. Next, Zod destroys Jor-El. So in this scene, Jor-El is trying to convince Zod not to take the Genesis Chamber, but of course, Zod's not having it. Let's take a peek at the actors' movements in the blocking to see how they help tell the story.
Our people can coexist.
So we can suffer through years of pain trying to adapt like your son has?
When Zod goes on the attack to make a point, he moves closer to Jor-El almost like an intimidation tactic. After Zod's made his point, he turns his back on Jor-El and continues doing what he was doing. 1, that's super disrespectful. And 2, that just further drives home the point that Zod can't really be bothered with Jor-El. He just makes his point and then he turns his back and goes the other way. Doesn't even bother to wait to hear Jor-El's response. He just, dismisses him. Zod continues ignoring Jor-El until Jor-El brings up Clark.
My son is twice the man you were.
Now Jor-El's got Zod's attention. Zod goes on the attack, moving closer to Jor-El as he makes a big threat. He plans to kill Clark and harvest the codex from his dead body, and then once that threat's made, Zod moves away and destroys Jor-El for good. Every time one of the characters wants to make a point, they advance on each other. It's almost like a jousting match or a little dance that they're doing. Through the blocking, they're able to make the conflict that these 2 characters are having with one another much more visual. Well, that's all I got for you. If you enjoyed what you saw, please like, go subscribe. You can find me on the social medias, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, or the Twitter, baby. You can also check out my second YouTube channel, Darius Britt, where I vlog about my adventures on the film festival circuit, my first feature-length film on Sound Life, casting vlogs, etc., etc. I do believe that's all I got for you, suckers. D-Bird out. Booyah.